All right, welcome back, Business Freedom Podcast listeners. I feel so lucky today to spend some time with Greg and Stephanie Sisson out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And the first thing I'll say is that anytime you have a referral to Myrtle Beach, it goes to these two awesome individuals right here. And why don't you guys start off? Just hook the listeners. What does this year look like for the team in terms of units and volume?
Well, our goal is to do 400 units this year as a team, and that will do about 80 million in total sales volume. So you do the math, we're about 200,000 average sales price.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So get us started. I like to start off with some kind of motivational quote that, you guys have built an awesome business and you are business partners and you're married, and I've been around you for a little bit of time, and you appear to pull it off with a whole lot of grace and composure in a completely crazy business. And I know you have children, and so I sort of know how crazy this could be, but what has been like a grounding quote or just something you've held on to over the years?
I mean, the one that's jumping out at me, Lars, is a new one actually, and I've shared it with my team over the past 30 to 60 days. And it's actually a paraphrase of Romans 8:28, which is that really well quoted verse that all things work out for the good of those who are called or trust him or known by God. And I butchered that, but here's the paraphrase: God will always give you what you would have asked for if you knew everything he knows. And so this business is like this constantly, and just trusting in the process, trusting in who you are and that you're doing the right things. You've got a game plan that works. And even though it's this way, just trusting that it's going to work out for the good. So that's something we've been talking about a lot lately with the team.
That's awesome. Stephanie, why don't you tell us, how do you guys divide the world? So one of the things we see with business partners, let alone spouses, is that it could get, if you're stepping on each other, it can get pretty hairy. How do you divide the world? What do you take care of, and what does your man there do?
Well, you kind of have to back up and know, since 1997, Greg has been what I would call a machine in this business. And he is a listing machine, has done so well. And probably about 5 years ago, I looked at him and I said, I love you. You cannot do any more than you're doing. So we need to kind of divide and conquer here. And at this time, he was still saying, I love you and I don't want you near my business. But over time, we kind of came to a place where it was like, okay, let's build out a buyer's team, because at the time it was quite comical. We had a couple of buyer's agents that were like, literally like, you're breathing, good, come here. And so we went from that approach to building a team to starting to get a little more serious. So the short answer is I am the broker in charge, but I'm the behind the scenes glue. And I try to have more of the vision of where we're going. And Greg is an amazing producer, and he's an amazing trainer. And so that's where he is the coach for the agents. And so it really divides very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Awesome. And Greg, if you peel off your faces, there's like a robot under there.
Maybe.
I've seen your numbers, and they are awesome. And the ability to transfer that to your team is an awesome blessing. Take us back to the phases of growth. Maybe Greg, you start out, it sounds like you started out with like solo producer, and then you guys made a decision to build a team. So maybe Greg, describe life as, what it took to become a top producing agent. And then maybe Stephanie, you take over with the phases of growth, and make it not too long, because I'm going to dive in and sort of help dissect it, but kind of take us through the journey.
Yeah. Well, it starts off, as really a sophomore in college in Charleston, South Carolina, when my dad, who worked for Floyd Wickman as a real estate trainer, was doing a class. I was at the college. I said, Dad, can I really make $100,000 in real estate, like selling real estate? He goes, oh, yeah, for sure. And this is in 1992 or 3. So that was a decision. So I made the decision then, got into real estate in 97, and just had great coaching. I think the progression, Lars, is I learned the skill of selling early. And I think a lot of real estate agents don't have the sales background or don't understand how to sell. And then theirs starts to struggle. So from a producing standpoint, I was, really a listing agent my whole career. And then Stephanie says we decided to do the team. What really happened 5-6 years ago is like, oh my gosh, we're leaving so much money on the table. And I just got to that place where I was not going to work with buyers anymore in terms of efficiency. So we added some people, and then we're like, well, let's add some more. And then it just, the roller coaster the snowball went from there. So that's kind of the progression. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Stephanie, when you guys make the decision to start the team, describe that journey a little bit in terms of it was perfectly clean. All the recruits came in and they were just perfect fits. And
oh no, we could write a book on the hilarious buyers, agents, and people journey that we've been on. And through that process too, we were with, Greg was with Century 21 for about 14 years. And then for about 6 months before we left Century 21, we were recruited, or he was recruited, to a boutique office in Myrtle Beach. That was great, the Hoffman Group, but it was boutique. So around here, everyone knew that they had 20 offices and all these buildings, and it was an oceanfront specialist. And they really wanted Greg to come over there because they had no single family presence. So they recruited him. It was a great package deal for him to go over there. But within a few years, we found a couple of issues. One, people from Ohio and New Jersey and New York don't know who the Hoffman Group is. So we were having to do the whole elevator speech all the time about explaining this boutique brand. And we were finding that Greg was outgrowing the company. So over a few years, by the time we looked at each other, he was doing about 45% of this huge business, that we were doing about 45% of their income. And so the numbers started not making sense. So he's producing, and I said, okay, wait a minute, I'm gonna raise my hand. Can we do something different? Can we go out on our own? And that was a really big transition in the last couple of years. So we thought we would go somewhere else, but we ended up buying a franchise with Remax, and we have our own environment here, and it's just been a really good change. So I hope that makes some sense, but no easy path.
Yeah. And so what, when you look back on, I think what is not shared very often in our industry is some of the challenges. And I want you each to answer the question, but what was the biggest challenge, Greg, that you had as a solo producer, and growing that business? And then Stephanie, that you've seen with just growing a team, like just really, if you're speaking into somebody that wants to either be a top producer and do what you did, Greg, what did your life look like? And then Stephanie, what does it look like to manage other people and hire, and what mistakes have you, like, what's the ugly of your both perspectives?
Well, on the producing side, if I'm talking to the people that are, you want to be a top producer, there's just no shortcuts. I mean, my morning routine was just very robotic, like you mentioned earlier. So, just memorizing the right scripts. As Mike Ferry, coaching trained, and Mike. Just having the right dialogues and scripts, and then executing every day. It's just, there's not an option not to prospect. So I think that's the hard part. People ask me, what would you do? I'm brand new. What do I need to do? I said, I shared this with you, Lars. I said, you got to get your undergraduate in selling by the next 3 years. You prospect 3 to 4 hours a day, make 50 to 60 contacts every day, and you're going to be a top producer, period. So it's just, I think there's no shortcuts for producing at a high level. You can do 40, 50 deals a year, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good production. But if you want to do 100, 150, 200 deals, you've got to be a master at the sales scripts and dialogues.
Yeah. And how, I'm trying to think of what ages are your kids now?
9 and almost 12.
So 9 and 12. So back, they didn't exist when you got into real estate.
That's right.
When did you guys get married?
15 years ago.
So 15 years ago. So I'm trying to put together.
Started general real estate in 99, because I did about a year and a half of on-site sales. So yeah, we had about 5 years before we were married. Yeah. And
so you established yourself as a solid producer before the kids came into the picture. How did you work together to make sure that you could still honor your daily schedule, given that you had young children? Because that probably was a challenge before the team even started, right?
I'll take that one, because I guess the luxury, I mean, she can attest to this. I mean, ever since we've been married, even before kids, I mean, I'm home at 5:30. I mean, I just was able to make a decision. When you are, the old quote from a guy I've known a long time ago, I can't remember his name, when you generate, you don't have to tolerate. And here's what I mean by that. When you're a listing agent and you're doing a lot of listings, then you don't have to work till 8 o'clock at night and weekends. So I think, to answer your question, I mean, it was an easy, I'm always home by 5 or 5:30 and still am today, and don't work the weekends. So it is easier to design that type of schedule as when you're focused on the listing side. Certainly.
Yeah. And also
I'm
having,
smiling. Oh, go ahead.
just having standards too, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Well, that's true.
yeah. That's really awesome. So Stephanie, when you're coming into the picture, the kids are super young. Well, they're still young, but 6 years ago, they were 3 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you manage all of that? Like what did that look like? What were some of the challenges, the not so gracious, moments in some of that?
Oh man, I mean, there's just so many, and it's one of those things that you look at each other and you think, okay, we got through that, and now what's next or whatever. But I have to smile though when you were talking about his schedule. I used to not have to fight him on the weekends for work. It was marathons. I'd have to pry him away from his 3-hour run to get him to come hang out with me. But anyway, I was envisioning that. But just recently, I would say just not hiring people for the quick fix. And so the big thing I think I'm just working through is trying to have people on the bench ready to go and already have my feelers out, because that's when we've run into problems. When we've had agents leave and suddenly we need 2 more agents, and you hire these people that can sell, but they're nightmares. And so those have been the painful learning experiences where I hired a broker one time that had been in the business for 20 years, but moved to South Carolina. And within days, she was telling me how to do things. And nope, you're done. Goodbye. Love you. Mean it. Goodbye. And then having other people that were just total rotten for culture, things that they hated everything about Greg, and they would hide that. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? So learning to really hire people for the right reasons and training them to be salespeople instead of hiring the quick fix. Those have been really big, painful lessons, but we're on a better path now.
I think going back to your original question, I just think some of the challenges, especially early on, Lars, I think it's really her time has ramped up dramatically when we bought the franchise, which is coming up on 2.5 years ago. And then it was a gradual thing. So I would say one of the things, like our daughter Eden, I mean, she'll be at the dinner table, and a challenge is she'll be like, really, y'all going to talk about business at dinner? She'll call us out, which is great. There's been conversations where Stephanie and I have looked at each other, and she's like, this may not even be worth it. Like, we'll sell it all and you just go back to listing, because it is, and the more books I read, the biographies, I mean, every business that's great, the first few years, I mean, it's hard. I mean, we have gone through that, and the profitability piece, I mean, taking on an office, it looked good on paper, but the overhead is real. And we are getting in a place, and thanks to B School, I mean, there's no question, just working and looking at financials and trimming and getting lean. But there have been days and weeks where we're like, did we make a mistake? Like, did we do the right thing? And we're not there now. I think we're in a great place. We've been with y'all for about 6 months, but that's the reality of what's happened, right, honey?
Oh yeah. I mean, when things are really expensive and the attitudes, in the past, you think, I don't want to deal with that. We don't have to do this. And his business on its own does very well. Yeah, we could just shrink the whole corporation down and just do it this way. But now I think the systems are aligning. We've got a lot of great people, so it is on a better path. But yeah, rocky road.
That's awesome. Was there a moment, and I think you may have you talked about the moment where you almost you're like, man, is this worth it? But was there a moment where there was like a transition point or an aha where you were like, I think you mentioned it earlier, like this has to change, or is the team to ultimately build leverage for you guys so that you can have a long game in this business? Like what's the current, aha that's going on with you in the business and thinking long game,
Two ahas. I mean, going back to really a year ago, February 22nd, 18, we fired 2 agents on the same day. And the replacement of those agents in the summer, which we replaced 2 or 3, so we've got 8 now. I mean, we are in a sweet spot culturally of people that, love being together, team players. I mean, everything about that is really, really good. So I think once we got all the team members on that we felt like are symmetric or on the same page, that seemed to things are getting rolling. I think having 8 agents, I feel like we're in a sweet spot, the aha, seeing the production going up, seeing some consistency with our agents where it was a little more last year like this. We've seen last 6 months or so, some more consistency. So it's taken a little while, but the long game certainly to phase me out eventually. I mean, I'm going to produce for a while, but to have that option, obviously that's the goal. Because when I go away for months at a time, if I'm not replenishing inventory, then my business suffers. So this is a wonderful replacement strategy.
Yeah, awesome. What let's dig into the current business a little bit. Listeners, they want to hear about like lead sources and how do you guys do that kind of volume? Sometimes it's almost too much to think of where, an agent that is doing 20 deals and like, how do I do what these guys have done? But talk about team structure a little bit, maybe lead sources that are working well, maybe lead sources that were a monumental, fail. Let's start there. Let's talk about structure of the team, lead sources that are working and lead sources that have proven not to work.
You want to take that?
Yeah, I would
and structure
say,
the team.
I'll explain.
Admin and everything.
We are probably pretty heavy on team because one of our core values is that Ritz-Carlton customer service. And that's kind of been a push for many years. Before we even knew that's what it was, we just wanted to make sure we were hiring ahead of our volume. So when you hear these employees, I think, wow, that's a lot of people. So Greg's our listing agent. And so he has a listing department. We have Rick, who's our listing coordinator. And then we have a client care coordinator that we hired, to me, years before people started calling it the client care coordinator, Kim. And so this is what we always laugh about. This is the person that's going to listen to our clients about their cat, or if they need their grass cut, Kim is all over it. She's wonderful.
She doesn't actually cut it, but
she'll make sure there's somebody to go do it.
Helps with that.
So we have our listing department, and then we have 2 licensed closing coordinators, and one is for the buy side and one is for Greg's listings. We also have a swing person now because of the volume that we've
in the closing department.
In the closing department.
And my closing coordinator, Robin, has adopted 2 of the buyer's agents because they're outpacing me now, which is great. That's what we want. But then we've got a full-time courier that does our photography because this year we'll take 220, 230 listings. He does the 40 Matterport photography, little signs, lock boxes, all of that. And we have Richard, our sales manager.
And we also have a new hire. Last February, I went to a Gary V conference and came back like, we're hiring a videographer. So
which we did.
And
she always wins that.
So it's been great though to have Jarrett on board. So he's a full-time videographer, but he does all of our social media. There's just so much having that person in-house. I highly recommend if somebody can afford that, to have someone in-house, because the videos we're able to make, it was so funny, like when we were thinking about it, we had so many friends that are videographers and they'll say, we'll meet you wherever. I'm like, no, I want someone to hop in the car in a moment's notice. And that's the kind of video that really makes a difference with social, that you can't be like, yeah, can you meet me in 2 hours for me to do this interview? That's fine. That's a level. But the level we're trying to be at is, it's so funny to catch people, there's bloopers in the office, there's things going on, and to show that in marketing has been really good.
And then the structure of the lead source, Lars, you asked about.
I want to chime in there real quick. I want to make sure everyone heard that I was counting the 8th hire was the videographer, because some agent selling 20 homes will be like, I totally have to hire a videographer.
Yeah, no.
And so I agree. Next level, 3 to 5 years from now, the more high quality content you have out there, it's game over. And I heard a call recently. I forget where this was, but I heard someone say roughly for every 50 sides in a team environment, not a brokerage environment, but in a team environment, for every 50 sides, you will need a staff member, whether it's a listing person or a closing person or a runner or a sales manager. And that about, I counted 8 for 400 sides. So you guys, who knows if this rule of thumb was right, but I just heard it yesterday. So I thought I would apply it. And I kind of went through my journey, and it seemed to make sense. You know, the year we did 400 sides, we were at about 8. The year we did 100, I only had 2, and it sort of scaled in between. So I think you guys are on point there. So let's get into lead sources. What's working, not working?
On the buyer side, you know, we got into that, you know, the Zillow early on, and you know, those have gone up quite a bit, as you know, so we're still, Stephanie probably should comment on this.
Actually, why don't you tell them about your, and then I'll talk about
Well,
mine.
I mean, I did the traditional, and still do expireds, and for sub owners was my thing for years. I really don't call them that often. I mean, right now, about 50% of my listings, so 110, 120 listings a year are going to come from past clients and centers of influence. And embarrassingly, most of that 120 are going to call me or email me. I am doing better on calling them, but that's half my business. The rest is really expireds and converting signs and other just, you know, kind of a myriad of different lead sources. But I'm still on the phones, you know, 2.5 hours a day prospecting outbound calls.
Awesome. I will say, and you'll know, of course, viral marketing has been a nice compliment for his past clients. We've been with him since 2010. You know, about 2 videos a month or 2 touches a month with them has been really helpful. Could we do it in-house? Yeah, but it's a habit, and they're very good about following up with us to make sure that it's done. And that's been a really good thing. And I mean, it's funny, we still get emails every month that they'll say, come list me.
I get about 2 to 3 listings a month from what I call the seller lead database. I've probably have, what do we have now, about probably 12 to 15,000 people that get an email from me monthly. Old expireds that I collected, Lars, in 2008, 9, and 10, when everybody was, I never sell at these prices. So I just collect emails, and we were just started emailing. So some of that's still maturing even today.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And that's, you know, that is straight up Gary V. If you guys have seen his overnight success video, have you seen that?
I have not, but I'm just laughing because I'm
like
sure
while he's speaking, he's showing like the 1,000 wine library TV videos. How he took his dad's, you know, little single location liquor store to like a $50 million online business or something. And then he launches, you know, VaynerMedia, and he sort of comes on the scene, and everyone's like, where'd this guy come from? He's like, overnight success. And it's like, dude, I started when I was 12 years old, and you know, in my dad's liquor store. And that's the same thing. So, you know, sticking with 2 videos a month I started with viral about 2010, and it's 2019 as we're recording this. So that's over 8 years. Right. And sticking with, you know, someone you generated in 2007, 2008 is still getting, they haven't unsubscribed and they're still getting emails from you. Who knows if they've mentioned or forwarded that video on to somebody that they heard. You know, that's awesome. Just sticking with it and consistency, I think, is just, it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
That's really
good. So the buy side is very different because we have been kind of just figuring it out. Zillow in its heyday, probably 4 years ago, was just a cash cow. We probably had an $1,800 a month spend a month, and probably took 25 listings one year from them.
We did.
And that was just the listing. That wasn't even, you know, what we're getting on. So it was wonderful. That time has passed, as you know. We are still in the game with advertising our listings, but our ad spend, although it went up tremendously in the past couple of years. I mean, we were up to $10,000 a month with, you know, lender co-marketing and all kinds of stuff. It just really hasn't panned out. So we are now basic, you know, bottom of the barrel in the sense of just keeping our listings present, keeping our reviews in front of people. But really, it's very expensive to play that game. And I almost feel like when I looked at our budgets and they were at $8,000 a month, and I felt like I was the low man on the totem pole, I knew we got to get out. This is crazy. Because if somebody's spending $25,000 a month and there were 2 in our market, I'm just like, I just can't play this game. And again, we're not trying to be 200 agents. We want to go home at night. We want to enjoy the people we work with. It just the math that makes sense. But
yeah, it's insanity. I talked to a guy at a Boomtown conference. He was a broker, spent $1 million a year with Zillow, and he lost money. He knew he was losing money on it. I'm like, we have a guy in boardroom that, he was spending $21,000 a month, and every time he closed a Zillow deal, he lost $400.
Oh.
Yeah. So he got rid of all of it. He went from 21 to 0. And he's like, this is great. I'll have $250,000 more cash this coming year. And it's like, so it really pays to track your numbers, and they've just gone crazy with their pricing. Not to talk about Zillow, but it's, just make sure if you're listening to this, make sure you know how much it costs to get something to the closing table, and make sure you're squeezing the lemon on like yard sign calls and other free stuff. So,
well, that's what we're looking forward to next week in Scottsdale. I really want to get with someone on the signs, because we really haven't been maximizing. We just have one sign. I want to see how doing the triple sign would really help our call-ins. I want to know, we have really never done open houses, and it still is kind of for us, but we want to be open-minded and get with some people that do it well. We really want to start looking at those free ways or very inexpensive ways to get business.
One thing we've done, Lars, it's been great because over the years we've accumulated, I think we're in that 4,000 leads, buyer leads over the years in our Boomtown account. And we removed, out of the 8 agents, we're requiring them to only keep 100 in their account, and then having this large account, which I know you're familiar with this, called the fish pond. And they're doing better now with less leads. Imagine that. I mean, it's that old diminished return. And I think if you're listening to this and you've got trying to manage, if your buyer's agents or you personally are trying to manage more than 100 leads, and one of my guys had like 1,800, and it's just mentally they're all like, they feel better. They're less attached. Somebody they talk to, if they're not good in their database, they'll throw them in and go get another one. And so we found that, I heard you say this or someone on a call recently, that we could probably not spend or get any new leads for 6 to 12 months and just go deeper in all these old leads that we have and churn those and not feel it. And so we're really looking at our lead spend to keep getting that down and just go deeper with what we've got.
Yeah, we're on this tear to like, how much business can we do spending no money? Like, that's the new challenge for our business.
I'll sign up for that one.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a pretty cool challenge. Even radio the returns on radio have kind of gone down quite a bit from, I remember my first month on radio, I got 35 calls, but it was back in like 2011 when nobody was on radio. Nobody could afford it. The market was complete crap. And now there's like 20 agents on radio.
Oh,
it's crazy. So let me ask you, let's shift gears a little bit. A lot of business owners struggle with, enjoying the ride, and you covered it a little bit, but what practices have you guys put in place to enjoy the ride, to not bring work home, and maybe it's just the kids swatting a cell phone out of your hand, and that's the main, because I've had that happen to me too. But how do you make sure that you guys enjoy the ride and really honor your relationship with God and with each other? And what advice could you give us there?
Yeah, I mean, well, go ahead. Now I can piggyback.
Greg is just going to say he married a great woman.
Well, this is kind of a side note, but when we started dating, Greg was in a fellowship or a Bible study called Bible Study Fellowship. It's an international Bible study. And for up until last year, so for 15 years of our marriage, he was in a men's small group Bible study that was devoted to the gospel. And I think our marriage has been completely different because of that basis and foundation and the way he leads our family. So I think for me, I really just hit the jackpot when it comes to the perspective. And he really just comes, a lot of times he has like an eternal perspective that this is today, but this is not forever. And is it really that important? So it's almost comical sometimes of the things that I think are important, and he doesn't even remember them. And I'm like, Okay, so I'm very thankful for that perspective. So I think it makes it easy that he's got control of his schedule, and he has most days has a perspective that's bigger than the here and now. But I was also thinking, when you're asking the question, internally in the office, some of the things that we've put into place that just kind of bring more fun into things. And I'm sure a lot of people are doing this, but we have family themed lunch, family team every this the third Tuesday of every month, and it's a big deal, and no one misses if they can help it, and everyone brings a dish, and we just kind of have a really good time. And every Tuesday we do Circle of Gratitude, and everyone tells us what they're thankful for this week, and it's just a great way of kind of reconnecting to the people and the relationships that are built in just those two little things. And then quarterly, we try to do bowling or, fun things. And I know a lot of people are doing that, but for us, it's been a huge way of just bringing community into the day to day.
Yeah.
It does sound cliche when you say we're family, but I mean, we really believe that. I believe that they bought in. The Circle of Gratitude is interesting. It's staff and salespeople on Tuesday. So you end up hearing people sharing burdens and asking for prayer, and just that creates connectivity. And people, when any small group situation, the longer you're with that group, the more people trust to share their heart. So I think the more that happens, people are like, they want to be a part of a workplace that feels like a family. So we miss the mark all the time, but that's certainly, they know our desire and our heart. So I think people are drawn to that. I really do.
Awesome. All right. We're going to go into just a rapid fire question situation here. So if you guys can keep it to one or two words, I'll just let you both answer. Start with Stephanie, and then we'll go to Greg. So what keeps you up at night when it comes to your business?
Really, nothing keeps me up at night. I think that's a
number two.
All right. Nothing keeps me up at night.
Expenses.
Okay. What were you most afraid of when starting the team?
That I would have to spend a lot of time with other agents.
I get it. I mean, selling 150 homes a year and then adding people into it. I thought you were going to say expenses.
That could be the same.
What about you, Stephanie? What were you most afraid of starting the team?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not afraid of things. I wasn't worried. And that's what he laughs at me all the time. He's like, are you not concerned? And I'm like, no, we are going to succeed. There's no doubt about it.
And then you throw the eternity back in his face.
Yeah, exactly. See?
What about the best advice you've ever received about business?
About business? Is that okay? Yeah. The best advice about business, get up. No. So the old quote is, no man who gets up before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich. I get up really early, and I get so much done in the morning. And so that's my thought, get up earlier.
Awesome. Stephanie, anything come to mind?
My uncle has said many times, it's better to be in a bad business with good people than a good business with bad people. So I believe that we've got the right people. So I feel, I just have a peace about where we're going. So I hope that makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah. So last questions. If you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
If I had to do it all over again, we probably would have gotten involved with team coaching sooner. I've been coached by Mike Ferry and love, I'm still a part of that organization, but I haven't found, we were searching we needed help, like from a business coaching. How do we run this team? There's so many things. I would have jumped into coaching faster with B School. I really would have. And that's not a plug for y'all, even though it is. It's just the truth. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Stephanie?
I agree. I knew about you in 2010.
Took me a while.
It takes a while. No.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. When I'm around you guys, I learn quite a bit. I think, Greg, you mentioned earlier, there's so many, it's good and bad. The bad part of just human nature is that everybody wants an easy button. And for business, it's good because if you're willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do, you can, and it's predictable. You can just build it. You know, if you're willing to do some level of sacrifice and have someone who's willing to understand the journey, a spouse. You know, when I was building the business, I had to make sure Julie and I were like, honey, like this is the way this is going to happen. And I really need you to trust me that there's a longer term picture. So I just appreciate you guys and the perspective you brought to this conversation about most of the crap that happens on a day-to-day basis. It will have no bearing, you know, on anything,
That's
you know.
right.
And so that's really, really cool. You know, if you're at a point in your journey, you know, where you're struggling, you know, just go to realestatebschool.com. There's a simple conversation that we'll have about your business to see if it's a fit. And it really is, like Greg mentioned, it's business coaching for real estate agents. It's not, we're not going to be the guy that's going to teach you every script, although we have scripts, you know, so you have to be sort of at the top of your game where, you know, you just need business coaching. So guys, I appreciate you and I can't wait to see you here in just a few days. So thanks so much. This has been awesome. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks
for having
Lars.
us.
All right. See you guys.